Whether you're a seller looking to hire their first or their next VA, or a VA who's looking for their first or next client, you're going to love the Hiring a VA Summit happening May 19th to the 22nd. Everything that weekend is absolutely free, and there are even some bonus live events the weekend before. You can get all of that information in the episode description, or if you have any questions about getting involved, you can send me a DM on Instagram over at Brittany Berlinich. Hello and welcome to the Social Media Magic Podcast, the perfect podcast for TPT sellers, teacherpreneurs, and teacher business owners who consider themselves to be introverts. Each episode shares all kinds of ideas, tips, tactics, and strategies to help you make more sales and grow your community on social media. Without further ado, let's get on to today's episode. Looking to hire a VA? I have the perfect resource for you. In the episode description, you can find my Hiring a VA Survival Guide. It has all kinds of resources and tools, everything you need, including step-by-step blog post walkthroughs, videos, tutorials, and specific podcast episodes from the Social Media Magic Podcast to help you hire your first or your next VA. You can find all that information in the episode description or in the show notes. Welcome back to the Social Media Magic Podcast. I'm your host, Brittany Berlinich. I'm a content strategist, social media manager, total marketing nerd, and I've also got to say, I really love sales too. I didn't really realize I love sales as much until I started recording all these different episodes about building your sales skills and also thinking about my past with network marketing and doing affiliates and stuff. And I was like, I actually love sales. I love having sales conversations. I love teaching TPT sellers about the art of selling and really how it's just connecting with people, solving problems. And I know you might be wondering, why is Brittany starting off this episode about the best places to find and hire VAs, virtual assistants, with talking about selling? Well, in my last episode, or at least I think it was my last episode, maybe it was 2 episodes ago, I've been recording so many, I talked about the different departments that you have in your brand, in your business, in your budding company, which I know is so weird for us to think about. You have growth, which is typically consisting of sales and marketing. You have operations like taxes, bookkeeping, legal, stuff like that. And then you have fulfillment. So you have like actually creating the resources, listing the resources, customer service questions, emails, dealing with orders, dealing with course sales, maybe having someone be a community manager for your membership or being a success coach for your course. Whatever it is, it's something that's relating to actually delivering the service or the product. It falls under fulfillment. And so in that episode, I gave you some examples of different jobs or roles that you could hire out a generalist virtual assistant or a more specialized VA for. And I think it's good for you to think about those things because where you hire really depends on like which type of virtual assistant you're hiring out for. And if you haven't listened to that episode yet, a few episodes back, I talked about the 2 different kinds of virtual assistants. And I know that for some reason, we all say that we don't like boxes, and yet we always love profiles and types. Like, who doesn't love reading their Enneagram or maybe talking about human design or zodiac or whatever? Why do we do that? I don't know. But when we think about the 2 different kinds of virtual assistants that there are, generalist and specialist, depending on what you need and kind of where you are in your business, you're going to probably go to a different place. Not necessarily, but at least that's what I've found. So we're going to talk about the best places, in my opinion, to find virtual assistants. You may or may not have heard them before. And if you have heard of them, but you haven't acted on them, then this is your call to action to go and hire a VA. Okay, and it doesn't have to be me. I know a lot of times I talk about my own products and services on my podcast because that's part of it, right? But I really want you to do what's best for you. And depending on where you are in your business and your growth, you might not be ready to hire a full-on social media manager yet or a social media strategist to plan out your content. You just might not be ready for it. And that's okay. There's no shame in that. There's no saying that you might not grow into that in the future, or maybe you'll do it on your own for a while and then you'll learn social media strategy by doing it. By the way, Content Club would be great for you to check out if that's where you're at. It's $9 a month, at least as when I'm recording this episode, really accessible, and it's great for just getting good at creating content. That is the focus. So let's talk about the best places for you to find and hire your virtual assistants. By the way, if you haven't registered already, I have a free mini audio-only summit coming up May 19th through the 22nd. And at this mini audio-only summit, you're going to hear from people on both sides of this whole situation. You're going to hear from TPT sellers who have hired VAs and had great experiences. You're going to hear from TPT sellers who have hired VAs and had bad experiences. You're going to hear from VAs who have worked with TPT sellers and also with other people outside the TPT niche. There's even going to be a little opportunity for quote unquote speed dating, so you can interview different people for different positions. Not only that you might be ready to hire right now, but even if you're not ready, this would be good for you to come to just so you can get practice. And that's whether you're a TPT seller looking to hire either now or in the future, or you're a virtual assistant looking to get more clients. Because just the practice of getting on calls, we call them discovery calls or sales calls, is going to be so helpful for you. Because learning a skill, right? When we're interviewing a virtual assistant, we're learning how to ask the right questions to ensure that we're hiring someone with a skill set and experience and price range, honestly, that we need. And then as the virtual assistant or freelancer ourselves, the service providers, we're learning to qualify our clients and make sure that the person is at the stage that we need in order to be successful working with them. It has to be a mutually beneficial relationship. If not, there's going to be resentment, frustration, and a lot of that communication that's really awkward. You have to learn how to do it, and that just comes from practice. So this is a really safe place. You're not going to be required to exchange information if you don't want to. I'll have an opportunity for you to add your contact info if you'd like to get out to, which is really great for VAs because then you'll get possible leads. For TPT sellers, that's cool too because, gosh, it could be so exhausting and draining. Hiring is a lot, right? Like if you've never hired before, it can just be intimidating by that fact of you not ever having done it. And if you have done it, then you know how time consuming it can be because you have to go through applications and then you're looking for people who actually did what you said in the job description and then you're emailing them back and then you have to wait for them to get back to you. And it's like, oh my gosh, so much back and forth, right? So just imagine if you could get a whole bunch of them in one room, knock out the interviews, just at least pre-qualifying interviews for the first few minutes. Do you have these skills? Do you have this experience? Do I like you? Because that's part of it too. And then great, let's talk more. You just are going to weed out so much of that time, which is what I'm all about. Okay, so let's get to it. Where are the best places to find and hire your next virtual assistant, specifically as a teacherpreneur, TPT seller, teacher business owner? So I talked a little bit about this in a previous episode. If you have a lower budget, and I'm going to put an asterisk here because this also has to deal with your values and what you believe. For example, if you believe it's only ethical or right to hire virtual assistants from the United States if you're an American yourself or from a Western country or whatever, then this option's not going to work for you. But I will say, I was so inspired by Lauren Fulton from the Rebranded Teacher Academy that she shared this because it's something that I think a lot of us know, both in the VA world, teacherpreneur world, and also in the TPT seller world. And there's like this hush-hushness about it because like the VAs don't want to talk about it because a lot of times it could be a lot cheaper than the other options. And then the TPT sellers don't want to talk about it because they're scared of getting judged if they use it. So I'm going to come out and share it, and you can make your own decision of whether or not you think it's good or right. I will share a little bit of my opinion on it, but my opinion honestly doesn't matter. It comes down to you and your business at the end of the day. So onlinejobs.ph, what is it? It is a matchmaking website. I guess the best way to explain it. It's like a job board. And so it's only for Filipinos, people who live in the Philippines, where they can go online and find virtual assistant work. And virtual assistant is really a catch-all term. I mean, you can find amazing people on here. We're talking specialized podcast managers with several years of experience, social media managers. Usually, I've had a hard time finding other social media strategists, but social media managers that are really good on there. I've found generalist VAs who want to show up and help you and support you and do some general catch-all tasks. And even like specialists in different genres. Like I'm working with someone from the Philippines and she is working with Pinterest and she has not a TPT store, but she creates teacher resources for another site that's exclusively in the Asian market. Oh my gosh, she's so gifted. Her product photography is amazing. She understands social media. She's kind of an influencer, honestly. And so I'm excited to be working with her. And I mean, maybe I'll give you an update like when more time has passed, but you can find some amazing people on here if you open your mind up to it. Now, the reason I say it's usually more affordable, I mean more affordable when you're comparing it to the American market. Because I mean, let's be real here. You're probably not going to be able to get a specialist in the United States for less than $35 an hour, maybe. Honestly, it depends on a lot of things. But usually, like the social media managers I know in my community, we're taught don't go lower than $500 per platform per month. And even that is honestly really low for how much work goes into it. For most people, I guess it depends on how new you are. I am so fast at the things I do that actually it can be less expensive to hire me because I spend less time on things. But that's another idea for another time. So a lot of people like using onlinejobs.ph because one, it's typically more affordable for an American VA because when you think about the different cost of living, right? Like if you're in the Philippines, if a teacher, actually let's just say this for perspective, a principal in the Philippines makes $500 or $600 a month US, which is really hard for us to think about. Like this is a person who has the same degree requirements we do. They had to go get a bachelor's, they had to go get some kind of teaching certificate, they had to go get a master's, sometimes they even have a PhD, they went to college, and they're making $500 to $600 a month. That can be so baffling to us. And there are so many reasons to this. I don't want to pretend to be like a Filipino politics expert, but one big factor of this is cost of living. Just how it's cheaper to live in a state like Kansas than it is to live in the Upper East Side, New York City. It is much more affordable to live in the Philippines typically than it is to live in most of the United States. So their hourly wages, it's not really abnormal for them to get a full-time job from a company and be paid $3, $4, $5, $6 an hour. This is always going to change, obviously, as time goes on. America's not the only country feeling inflation. That's worldwide. So the minimum hourly rate is going to go on, but you can see where if a Filipino is commuting an hour to 2 hours each way a day, and they're making $500 to $600 a month in a professional position, why wouldn't they want the opportunity to make the same or usually way more money and be able to work from home and save money on gas or save time on public transportation? You can start to really see why it's such a popular option over there. And so there are different ways you can look at it. Another thing I think about is if I had a job board, let's say that Americans had a job board for virtual assistants and all the people hiring were in Switzerland. And I knew that if I went on this job board, I would make $50 an hour. Heck yeah, I would be on that job board as a social media manager. Like, why wouldn't I be, right? Now, the reason that our hourly rates are so much higher is just because our cost of living is higher. There's so much to get into here about like living wage and like your worth. And a lot of people equate their personal worth to what they make. And I get why, but there's so much to get into there. But I will just say, I know people who are on that website and their hourly rate, not me, I'm not setting it, their hourly rate is anywhere from $5 to $7 to $10 to $15 an hour. So you can actually go on there and not even set your own job description. You can go and see different workers from the Philippines, check out their profiles, see what their required hourly rate or monthly, they call it salary, but it's not really typically a salary because they're independent contractors. You're not employing them full time, right? But they'll tell you what they're looking to make. And don't get put off by that. Just because someone says, well, my monthly salary required or desired is $500, that doesn't mean that you have to pay them $500. It means that's what they're looking to make. So if you work with them and you're paying them $100 a month because that's how many hours you have, that's your budget, then maybe you can refer that person. If they're really good, other friends, you help them out, you help your friends out, so on. I actually do have an affiliate link for the website. I'm really trying to get John Jonas, the founder, to come onto my podcast. I know that's like a long shot, but I'm just the pitching person. Like I will just pitch anything. And if someone says no, it's okay. By the way, that is part of sales and marketing and putting yourself out there. You know, people are going to say no. People are going to say not right now. People are just going to ghost you. That's just part of putting yourself out there. And so I'm putting myself out there too. So hopefully that'll be an example to you. But whether or not he comes on the show, I definitely think it's something worth checking out if you're open to that. And you can find the affiliate link in my episode description or in the blog post show notes later. And I believe I've linked it in the What is Onboarding blog post I have up too. So you can always go and check that out because it's a really nice overview if you're new to this world. Another great place to check is Fiverr. Kind of spelled weird, Fiverr. And a lot of people have this misconception that if it's Fiverr, that everything is just going to be cheap because, I mean, gosh, inflation has changed so much. Like you probably could have gotten some tasks done for $5 each at the beginning, but now it's like not even a thing because what is $5 really in the global scale, right? And Fiverr is a little different because you can hire people from all over the world. So, I mean, actually, it is possible that if you pay someone $5, that's more than they would have in their own country as far as opportunity. But it can be really affordable. And you have people of all levels there. You have people who are super experienced working with Fortune 500 countries, working with Fortune 500 companies as an independent contractor. They're on there charging, $3,000 to $5,000 for their projects. Although I would say Upwork is a little bit better for that. I'll talk about that in a minute. And then on the lower range, you could have someone editing your podcast for 15, $20 per episode. So depending on what it is that you need or want, Fiverr could be great. And it's a great place to hire not just someone to work on like an hourly or recurring basis for you, but it's also a place that you can hire people for one-off projects. So we talked a little bit about that in previous episodes, but maybe if you need a website done, although honestly, I would probably go to Upwork for that, or I would go do personal networking if it was that expensive a project. But you could get a website done for a couple $100s. You don't have to pay thousands, and that might be okay for where you're at. A lot of people have this perception that with things like websites and branding, that once it's done forever. But anyone who's had a website or who's done websites knows that's probably not true. You're probably going to need to update your website. You're going to have a bigger hosting plan because you're getting so much traffic, which I know that's the dream, right? Is you have people passively coming to your website and buying things. But when we think about the evolution of our brand and our business and our marketing over time, you're likely going to have your website done more than once. And so if you just need something simple up and running and then you want to make it fancy later, you can find people on Fiverr to help you with things like a website. Fiverr's also great for those graphic design projects. So if you need a podcast cover art done, if you need a logo done, if you need something like that, like graphics, it's great because it's lower risk, right? It's not like a website that's like pretty high risk. And if you don't like something, usually they have some kind of revision policy so you can send it back to them and say, hey, I'd like a little more of this, a little less of this. I'm also an affiliate for Fiverr and proud of it. You can find that affiliate link in the episode description as well. And by the way, if you do purchase anything through my affiliate links, and not that you have to pay for all of these, like onlinejobs.ph has a free version, although honestly, I would upgrade and pay because I think you can only respond to so many job posts or so many inquiries or whatever kind of limits you. If you want to actually be able to post a job and have it up and running, then you're probably going to want to upgrade. And it's not cheap. It's $69 a month, which I know can be a lot if you're a beginning TPT seller. But just think about the cost of savings over time, and you can start to see that that's really not a lot. I mean, even if you pay for 3 months while you're trying to find the right person, it can be really affordable. And I actually have a solution to that too, which I'm going to be talking more about soon. So kind of keep your ears open for that. And I'll talk more about it at the mini audio summit too, happening May 19th through 22nd. Make sure you get your ticket, totally free those days. Upwork. So I kind of mentioned it. Upwork is very similar to Fiverr. You have people from all over the world on that website. The difference about Upwork is typically, not always, you have a lot more specialists on there. These are service providers. These are freelancers who have decided to niche down really specifically. So these are your podcast managers, your podcast strategists, your copywriters, your email marketing people, your social media strategists, your website designers, your website developers, your app developers. If I know that I need someone who is a true professional and I can't find them through personal networking or just knowing somebody or through the Facebook groups that I frequent, Upwork is where I'd want to go, especially if it's a higher risk, higher quality of work. And I want to stop right there too and say that that's not to say that social media isn't important, because of course I think it is, but I'm saying that there are certain activities that are higher risk. If you hire a social media manager, for example, and you work with them for a few months and you're like, I'm not liking what I'm seeing, or I'm going to go in a different direction, it's not that big of a deal, right? If you didn't like some posts that they made, you can always ask them to make some tweaks, but you can also just delete or archive posts. Like nothing really big or bad or major is going to happen. But if you have a website set up wrong and then you have to go and fix all these bugs, or you have all these problems down the line, or there's like some kind of site hacking and people's credit card information gets stolen, then you can see it's a much bigger deal. So there are certain projects and tasks that you hire out for that are a little more higher risk than others. And for those, you would probably want a specialist or even an expert. Okay, let's talk about some places that are free to hire, right? Which you might want to know about, including one that you might not have thought of. So you might already know about some Facebook groups for hiring, but in case you don't, I actually have a free master list of Facebook groups for teacherpreneurs and TPT sellers. If you haven't grabbed that yet, you should get it because it's an ever-growing list of the best Facebook groups, not just for hiring, not just for being hired as a VA if you do VA work as well, but it kind of covers the gamut. So it covers the best Facebook groups for you to learn in and learn from. It covers Facebook groups for marketing, groups to get pitched to be on podcasts, to pitch people to get on your podcast. Did I say the same thing twice? I always mix those two up. Groups to get into collaborative bundles, groups to network, groups to social listening and market research. And I always say this, but so I'm sorry if you've heard it 60 times. Please, 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 when you're joining Facebook groups to do market research or social listening, please don't pitch or ask those really slimy questions. It's not the questions that are slimy. I guess it's the way you approach it. Like, you'll just know because you see somebody in a Facebook group, and I've done it. I wouldn't say we've all done it, but many of us have done it. So if you have, don't beat yourself up, but you have that group where someone just randomly asks, if you could wave a magic wand, what would be different about your marketing? And you're like, this is such an out of place question, and I've never heard from this person before, and it just feels like they're trying to mine me for info. That comes off so gross. Okay. But the cool thing you can do is you can actually just go use the search bar in a Facebook group, use the words help or support, see what other people have already been asking, and then use that when you're creating content, when you're creating products. Use that as your social listening or your market research. Don't go and overtly ask, at least not at first, okay? Just build some goodwill in the community, especially because you want to be able to connect with the admins and the moderators of the Facebook groups. It's going to be better for you over time. It's going to be better for them. Okay, so Facebook groups. So get that list. I'm just going to mention a few. The TPT Virtual Assistant Finder, you've likely heard of it. I feel like it gets mentioned on all the podcasts, but just in case you haven't, that would be a really good Facebook group for you to join, and I'll be sure to put that in the episode description. And if I don't, oh gosh, I'm so bad at this. I need to hire someone specifically for this. I am so bad, notoriously. I will think of a resource to enter while I'm talking. I'm like, oh, that would be great. And then I forget. I make notes, but I still forget. So if I ever don't include something, please message me on Instagram over at Brittany Verlenich. I will make sure you get it, and then I will be thankful because I will make sure it gets added in. So that group is really great. If you're a VA yourself and you just happen to be listening, so I know a few of you listen, or you're wanting to kind of get your feet wet in this, and maybe you want to go outside the TPT niche, but also for TPT sellers, this might be good for you because you would be posting in a group that doesn't get as much competition, would be Higher Up Online. And I don't know the URL, but if you just go to like Higher Up Online Job Ops OPPS, I think you'll find it. That is such a quality Facebook group. I find jobs in there all the time as a freelancer. And then it's also good for posting jobs because you have, I don't want to say higher quality of people, you just get a higher quality caliber of applicant in the sense that they're more experienced. They know how this stuff goes, right? You're not working with someone who's never been a VA before. So especially if you're a really established seller and you've worked with a lot of independent contractors and you're like, I don't want to work with newbies. No shame to the newbies. It's great if you're a newbie, but I get if you don't want to work with newbies. So if that's what you need, I would go to the Higher Up Online group. There are so many like that. There are so many other job boards. So there's this other group called Hire a Filipino VA. That one's really, really good too. And that's especially great if you're interested in working with VAs from the Philippines, but you're maybe not ready to make that payment investment of onlinejobs.ph. That's a really, really good one. And then there are some more general groups for teacher sellers and for TPT that would still be good for networking. And even if you're not a VA yourself, it would still be good to be in there because you can ask other sellers, who have they worked with? Who do they recommend? Who do they maybe not recommend? Which with this, please don't ever do that publicly. It's just in such poor form when people talk bad about each other. So if you have feedback about a VA, message the other person privately, but it's a really small community. So I really don't recommend bad mouthing anybody, even if it's true, right? Like it just doesn't look good on you. It's not professional. So just message that other person and say, hey, what went wrong? And consider that you still have to make your decision at the end of the day. Like I will tell you, to be honest, like people who were my first client, like they probably didn't get my best work just because I was new, right? I mean, they're going to have a really different perception of me than someone I'm working with now. And someone I'm working with now might not even think I'm as professional as the person I work with 3 years from now. So these are all things you have to consider and bear in mind. It's just like reading reviews on a site like TripAdvisor or Expedia, but that's not to say that that feedback doesn't have merit. So be willing to do a little bit of diligence and research, ask for references, especially if you're doing the network marketing route or you're searching in Facebook groups. And don't be afraid to actually contact those references and ask questions. And be sure that when you're asking for references, be sure to include like no personal references. I want to speak with someone you've actually worked with or that you've done testimonial work for. And if you're a VA listening to this and you're like, I haven't done any work yet, then you can always do a couple of projects for free. I know it's so hard. You're like, for free, but think about TPT sellers. You know what I mean? Like TPT sellers work for free all the time. Like they don't see the payment until much later sometimes. So I do think that if you're going to be in the TPT community, you've got to be willing to put the work in, do some networking, give back before you ask for a sale. Okay. That's just good reciprocity in general. Something for you to think about. Okay. And then finally, locally. This is something that didn't really come up to me until recently when my husband was asking, because I was mentioning to him that personally, you guys, I'm so busy. I don't think I've ever been busier than I am right now. And that's not to complain. I feel very privileged and blessed where I am. Not that I'm saying that I'm a millionaire, because I'm definitely not. But I'm just saying, like, I'm seeing opportunities come. I've been like planting seeds for years now, and I'm seeing things come to fruition, which is so exciting. But it's also a next levels for me. So a lot of things are new and hard because I haven't done them before. Like, this is so crazy. I'm doing a paid speaking conference thing. Like, they're actually paying for me to go there, stay at the hotel. They're paying for my food the whole time. And I am so excited because this is what I wanted. I wanted to be able to get these paid conference speaking things and to be able to get paid to travel. Like, if you ask 2017 Brittany, that's what I wanted, right? And it's so cool because it's happening. But now I'm like, oh crap, I don't know how to negotiate speaker fees. I don't know how to do all this stuff, right? Because I haven't done it yet. So I have all these things that I'm learning. It's going to be the same for you. You're going to feel like you're out of your depths, and that's okay, right? You're learning and it's okay. You're going to learn. But one thing that didn't come up to me was the idea of hiring locally, because I need to hire someone that's literally like a personal assistant, because I hate when I feel like I don't get back to people quickly enough. And it's legitimately because I get anywhere from 50 to 200 messages a day. And that's across several different platforms and different niches and things. So I'm realizing that I can't stay on top of everything I'm doing. And so I need not really just a virtual assistant, I need a personal assistant, because I don't want to let friends or personal people getting back to me down either. So there's going to be always like an up leveling, and hiring locally can be really great because it can be someone who does something on location for you. And I talked a little bit about this when I talked about outsourcing, but it doesn't always have to be directly business related. It could also be someone who's cleaning your house, or someone who's meal prepping for you, someone who's babysitter or a nanny who's in the house. Because I know a lot of parents feel weird about their kids not being in the home. So you can hire a babysitter to come to your house, right? And then have them working with the kids so that you can be in your office working still at home. Like, there's so many ways that we can get creative and solve the problems that we have of not enough time, not enough money, not enough resources to be able to do the things that we need to do. So get creative. Or is there a high school student or a college student? Could you hire an intern? I'm going to be talking more about this on a future episode of could you hire an intern for these specific tasks that you either don't want to do or don't have time to do, because I don't ever hear anyone talking about that in the TPT space. And so I want to bring it to you guys. I hope that this episode has been super helpful for you. I wish I would have had this resource a few years ago when I was flopping through trying to hire my first VA and failing miserably and learning all the lessons and being totally stressed out, which now I look back and I kind of chuckle because I'm like, oh my gosh, like now I work with so many people and it's so different. But it's just like, wow, that first one is just so scary. And then the next one could even be scary. Your first specialist can be really scary. Like, oh, I'm going to pay this person $3,000, $5,000, $7,000. So I just want to let you know, no matter where you are, it's always scary and hard to up level to the next one. Just do a little search. Just check things out. You're not committing to anything by looking. So go look and see how you feel about hiring VAs abroad. Maybe you decide as a policy, you're only going to hire VAs in the United States. Maybe you're going to decide as a value of your company, you're only going to pay people this much. Like that's your minimum living wage you feel that's comfortable paying. Figure out what feels good to you. So I'm just going to review those places again. Onlinejobs.ph to hire VAs specifically from the Philippines. Fiverr, Fiverr, really great for project-based work like logos, design, and podcast cover art. Upwork, so the Upwork, Upwork, really great for hiring specialists and people who are seasoned in a certain specialty. Kind of just said specialist twice. Facebook groups. Get my master list of Facebook groups in my episode description so that you can see the best groups to join and learn, best groups for networking, and best groups for hiring and getting hired if you're a VA too. And finally, don't forget about the option of hiring people locally. They don't always have to be employees. They can be independent contractors who come to your house. Now, you do have to be careful. Don't cross the employee boundaries. I'm not a lawyer, but just do your own research about what's legal for independent contractors versus what's legal for employees. I would love to talk with you and see where you're at with all of this. DM me on Instagram over at Brittany Verlenich, or come talk about it with other sellers in my Facebook group, Social Media Magic. Talk soon.